Welcome. We will discuss about a very important topic that uh, that people often ask this to me. So I thought of discussing this with you. Okay. So there are two career options for people with mathematics and programming skills: quants and data scientist. They're very similar actually, right? There's not a lot of difference between being a quant and a data scientist. But what's the difference? And more importantly, who earns more, who makes more money, who's got a higher salary package in the job. We'll discuss about it. But those of you who are not familiar with what a quant is or what a data scientist, I'll talk about a brief, and then we'll talk about the the salary aspect of it, and also different consideration regarding that. So, okay, let's first define what a quant is, what a data scientist is. Well, quant is a person who uses maths, statistics to build financial models, pricing models in banks. And data scientist is a very generic role, and it is a profile that you can find in almost all industries. And people use statistics, machine learning to build models for different purposes. They're similar actually, right? Quant build models, data scientists also build models. But quants basically work in banks. They do not work in other sort of sectors, banks or hedge funds or insurance companies, but not outside of banking and insurance. You won't find quants. And quants basically use more of theoretical models, right? You need to master theory of the models also, not just unlike data scientists. If they know how to use models, that is fine. But quants, on the other hand, have to understand the mathematics or theory behind the models. So it's a bit different profile. And quants, yeah, the another difference is quants use a lot of applied mathematics, less about statistics, but they also use a lot of applied mathematics, a lot of theoretical mathematics, so stochastic calculus and so on, and less of machine learning. It is slowly gaining popularity in quant community, but unlike data scientists that uses a lot of machine learning, quants use less of machine learning, more of statistics, more of applied mathematics. Question is, who makes more money? Okay, there are a few things to know. um, so let's talk about the salary then, right? Who makes more money? Well, on the top end, like if you're a top quant or a top quant data scientist, you earn the same salary. You don't there is hardly any difference at the top end. So someone working with Morgan Stanley as a quant or Goldman Sachs, these are the banks, right, would earn pretty much the same salary as a data scientist in Google or Microsoft, because you are top of your game, so you make similar salary. Could be that a quant makes more money, slightly more, but on average, the salary would be pretty much the same. Well, banking organizations basically pay a lot of money, right? Also, the pressure in banking is much more. Work pressure is much more. Work is more also. On the other hand, data scientist jobs in Google, Microsoft are less stressful jobs. So the salary at the top end is basically pretty much the same, hardly any difference. But if you're working as a quant in hedge funds, then you make more money than data scientist. So that's one thing. But there are few things to consider here, which is that there are not many people who are at the top end. Most of the people are in fact at the middle end, right? They're not like the top 1% or top 5% in their own sector. But what about people that are not in the top 5%? Well, among them, the quants make more money than the data scientists, almost always. On average, or in fact, most of them make more money than the data scientists. And there is a reason behind it, because quants work in insurance and banking company who are the paymasters. So they pay a lot of money, even to the ones that are in the middle level category. But for data scientists, is more of a generic professions. Well, a couple of years back, when there were not many data scientists, well, even data scientists we used to be paid very high. But I think the demand, because of the supply of talent, because now everyone is learning data science, and the supply of talent is now huge, so the salaries have come down. And other companies, such as tourist in companies in tourism and in aviation, in education, these companies cannot pay as much as banking and financial service companies. So there you see a difference. So in terms of average salary is much different. But even data scientists do work in banks, right? They make similar salary as quants, no doubt about it, in bank if they're working in banking organizations. But still you see quants making more money, especially in the middle end, because of the domain knowledge, because you have to have a very good domain knowledge in quant areas, some areas quants, than in working as a data scientist. So that's one thing I can tell you from my experience, that in the middle end, quants make more money, especially in some countries. Quant make much more money than the data scientists in this particular category. And then what about the lower end, right? There is also a third category. Well, it doesn't exist for quants actually. You won't find quant jobs at the lower end, probably in small banking and financial service companies, but not in most companies. But you can find low end data science positions, so that's possible, and you can find a job there. So there you are better off being a data scientist, because if you are at the very low end, then you won't get a job as a quant. There is a huge entry barrier to enter to banking and financial service companies, or consulting companies that are catering to financial service companies. So at the lower end, you are better off as a data scientist. As a middle end, you are better off as a quant. At the top end, it doesn't matter. So that's basically the conclusion in terms of salary. Now, if you're thinking about a career, and you're a bit confused as to what you should pursue, if you are more of a math lover, you love to do probability problems, you're more of a math lover than a programming geek. You are more into maths, you're more into theory, you really want to understand theory behind of all the maths, then I would suggest you better go for a quant profile, right? Learn lots of quantitative techniques used in finance and banking, and try to get a job in banking and finance. But if it is the other way around, like you're more of a programming guy who wants to build products from scratch, and less worried about algorithms, mathematics and things like that, then you're better off as a data scientist. There you'll be very valued for your programming skills, and less valued for your theoretical knowledge about algorithms. Well, in some places you will definitely be valued, but not in many places. So you're better off being a data scientist, right? So the other consideration also, like finance is a very specialized domain, so you have to have some interest in economy and finance to be able to be a good quant. But that's not necessarily the case for data science positions, right? I mean, you can move from being a data scientist in aviation to tourism to healthcare to other sectors. I mean, It's more of a generic profile where you can easily move from one industry to the other. But that's not the case for quants. Quants do not have many options. So you have to be then sure about the fact that you are interested in banking and finance, and economy and finance, accounting. Otherwise, because if you spend 5 years and then you don't like it, you will not have many options to pursue a career in some other industry. Well, some people do change from being a quant to data scientist, and from data scientist to being a quant, but that does not happen always, and it's also very difficult. So one thing to keep in mind is that if you love math and love economics, physics, economics and finance, then go for a quant. Otherwise, if you are more programming geek, better to go for a data science job. Of course, that's not the only way of choosing a career. You can also think about other prospects, right? Because in many countries you do not have many quant jobs, right? Quant jobs are very concentrated in financial centers such as London, New York, Chicago, big European cities, even in Singapore, Dubai, India. Many places you have lots of quant jobs, but in many countries you simply do not have quant jobs, but you have many data science jobs. So it's also about access to different jobs. That's always one consideration before you start preparing yourself for a given job. Other than that, money should be one of your factor, but that should not be the main factor. As you know, if you're very best, then the salary is pretty much the same. All right, that's what I wanted to talk to you today. Thanks for